Waiting for.
And you're live.
Is it? All right, okay. Apparently I'm live on AusHammer today with your co-hosts Ryan and Brynley. It still says off air on my thing, but anyway. I could be talking into the void. So welcome to this episode of AusHammer Live with me, Gav Thorpe, and some friends that I met online a couple of days ago.
Yeah, get to do
Nothing sus.
That's what we're about here. Yeah.
From the other side of the world.
Very exciting. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're very excited to have the one and only Gav Thorpe here
live now. Awesome.
with us on AusHammer. It's an absolute privilege to have you on our show. Thank you so much. I'm a massive fan of your works, and so is Ryan. And if he hasn't read enough books, I'm going to make sure he reads more books. And I know a lot of the people who are watching the show tonight are huge fans as well. So again, thank you so much for coming on. I hear you've got a new book that's coming out. We're going to be talking about that later on. We've got a couple of unpaid announcements to go through first, and you've agreed to play Guess That Booty. So we'll be doing that, and that should be pretty exciting. So we'll just go quickly to the event. So these are mostly local events that are happening down here in Australia. It's pretty exciting. So first we've got Warrior Lodge, March 4. They've got Age of Sigmar doubles event, which will be really exciting. Starts at 10 o'clock. Magic Vault, March 10. Warhammer 40k First Strike Tournament. Again, very exciting. And then Irresistible Force has got Brother in Arms on the February 10. And then Force Axe number 2. I went to the first one. It was great. And that's on the 7th of April. So that's not for a long way off. We're having a bit of a drought in tournaments here in Australia, mainly because everyone's building up to CanCon, and some strange people actually starting to practice for BrisCon. So for those of you who don't know, CanCon 26-28, buy tickets by now. You won't be able to get on. Free entry, you can walk in. Tournaments need to be paid for by now. We've got Call to Glory for Age of Sigmar and the 40k ITC. Very, very exciting. And that's me done.
Huzzah!
That was the quickest ever.
Alrighty, so Gav, we're going to kick it off in AusHammer style, mate, and just go straight into Guess That Booty. Do you spend a lot of time looking at the rear ends of little plastic men by any chance?
We sure do.
Some of them.
Excellent.
Short ones with beards. I've seen a lot of them.
The squats.
Alrighty. So basically, what happens here is I'm going to show the picture of a booty, and then you try and guess the owner of that booty. All of them are Games Workshop miniatures, so hopefully you may be able to guess one or two. They are quite hard.
Hard booty.
Hard booty, exactly. Here we go. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is lock onto my screen, and from there we will be able to get going.
Yeah, I can see that, I think.
You can see that? I don't know how they got there or who that is.
Something.
Here we go. All right, so number 1, guess that booty.
No, peer really. Guess that booty. I don't know. It looks a bit mechanical. There's some kind of calipers action going on. I have no idea. There we go.
Okay, so it is quite a mechanical booty.
Mechanical booty, yeah.
It is Meganobs.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, never seen the back of them.
Now, the next highly mechanical rear end.
Yes. Is that one? Is that what are they called now? Is that one of the big Adeptus Mechanicus thingies?
You're definitely on the right track here.
Oh yeah.
Are they Onager Walkers, something like that? I can't remember. That's my guess.
Here we go.
Names.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh no, nothing like that. Okay. If it's red, it's Orky, obviously.
I am sensing a bit of a theme with these booties. Now, that's definitely a fine rear end there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going Orky. Is it a burner boy? Actually, no. Is that? Oh, yeah, burner boy. I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty.
Actually, that's pretty good guess. So it's the Big Mech with shock attack gun.
I think it's kind of nice for orcs to use hazard warning mark stripes. Who are they warning? I don't know.
Well, considering how reckless they are, I do like that too. Yeah, actually, now that you've pointed that out, I'm never going to be able to keep
it's a bit like hamsters. It's not let's keep biting them.
Yeah. Alrighty. Gav Thorpe, guess that booty.
Okay. Well, there's some kind of drill behaviour. And there's a peg leg, a bad dock, maybe.
All right, here we go. It's a pain boy.
Yeah, there we go. That was pretty close, I think.
Damn close. Now, next one, changing it up a little bit here.
Right.
It's a bit more recent. Guess that booty.
There's some kind of Primaris dude, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
But I can never remember the names. So I'll randomly say Intercessor.
100% correct. That is a Space Marine Intercessor.
First one.
Wow, there we go. I got one.
First one for 2018. Very exciting.
So, Brynley, bust out your crayon, mate. That's one for Gav already. So, actually, you are now the highest scoring player of 2018. You're also the first player of 2018.
That's it. We're done. Quit while I'm ahead.
Now, this one again. Guess that booty.
Yeah, that's some demon butt, isn't it?
Really big demon butt.
Yeah. Is it Magnus's butt? I don't know. I've not seen his butt. That's a bit.
Correct.
No.
Oh yes.
Okay, cool.
Magnus the Red. Alrighty.
2. There we go. We're cruising.
All right. Now, this next one might be a little bit hard.
Okay. We've got some cloak and scroll. Are these all 40k?
I will say that there is one that is not, but we haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Is that a custodian of some kind? Is it a? Don't know. Yeah, I'm going to go with the gold armor. It's a custodian.
On the right track, but it is a Sisters of Silence Witch Seeker.
See, I was thinking that, but yeah. Okay. Well.
They look almost identical from the back. All right.
Cloak in the way. Yeah. Okay.
Now, this one here can be a little bit tricky or obvious depending on how you look at it. Also 40k and newer.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, that's tricky.
Yeah, I had some real pallid flesh behaviour going on there. Is it one of the Gene Stealer cultist types? Don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'll go with that. Gene Stealer neophyte or something. I don't know.
Oh,
it is a
Poxwalker.
Oh no! There we go. Oh, there we go.
He's a handsome chap.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
His trousers are quite clean, really.
Actually, and you know what? Well ironed as well.
Really well.
Actually, he's got nice creases.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For a person with that, looks like it seems to have like a pile of toenails for hands. He definitely can iron a pair of pants. Like.
My question is, what does he put in his front pockets?
What is useless? That's ridiculous. What's he going to pick up?
I don't know.
Where do you think he keeps his fingers?
Well, good point. But with that stomach, can he see his front pockets?
That's also true.
Poor fellow.
Second to last booty for the night.
Okay. Well, I'm going Necron, but is that a particular type of Necron? A Necron Immortal, say? I don't know. It's quite skinny, actually. I don't know. Just a Necron Warrior.
Correct. It's a Necron Warrior.
Yeah. Okay.
That's 3, Brynley. So mark that down with your crown. Now, this is the last one. This is your chance to get 4 out of 10 and set a pretty high benchmark for the year, Gav. Here we go.
Okay.
Guess that booty.
Oh well, that's called Gargants now, aren't they? An ale guzzler Gargant or something like that.
It is an ale guzzler Gargant. I am absolutely shocked, actually.
All over it.
There we go.
Because I tested that one on 2 other people and neither of them got it.
No.
That is quite good. That's 4 out of 10 for the year. That's impressive. You are currently the title holder for 2018. Congratulations, sir.
I've impressed myself with my booty knowledge.
Actually, you're equal second place overall.
For all time, second place. That's pretty impressive.
We can't count Ladies' Night because that was just Thor's bum and a bunch of other blokes. So it's not counted. Anyway, Gav, thank you very much for participating in Guess That Booty.
That's all good.
I don't know whether to be worried or impressed at your knowledge of the rear ends of plastic men. You're second only to Brynley.
Thank you.
And also, Michael held the record from last year. I do believe that you may get a challenge from him later on in the year for a match off, for a butt off. Guess That Booty. We will see.
Right. Well, I'll start practicing now then.
We'll throw in some more Eldar models next time. I think we'll just level that playing field out a bit more.
I think we can definitely sort something out. I do have a great source of booty, so we shall see. Now, Gav, obviously, you've done a lot in your time around hobby, around wargaming, not just writing, but game design. And I remember listening to an interview with yourself. I think it was a couple of years ago now, where you went through how you first started out. I think your first job was cutting up cards or something like that. Game cards. So, do you want to just for those that may not know the beginnings of Gav, where exactly did you come in?
The beginnings of Gav. I joined Games Workshop in 1993, which was just after or around about the same time as the release of second edition 40k. So the aforementioned cards, basically my first job, literally shown to my table by Andy Chambers, given the toilet orientation, and then sat me down with a big printout of what were basically mock-ups for the Dark Millennium box set, Psychic and Wargear cards, and then a pack of playing cards. So I had to cut out a piece of paper and spray mount them to the cards just for play testing. So yeah, I joined as an assistant games developer in 1993, which was a 2-year contract, but the second half of that was actually spent as a staff writer on White Dwarf. The other thing we did straight out the bat was we set up a kind of an in-house semi-professional fanzine called the Citadel Journal. Actually, the benefits of video. I happened to have found one the other day. There we go.
Look at that.
Whoa. Look at that 80s artwork.
Yeah, well, look at that.
Man, it's amazing.
Too cool for school. 19-year-old skinny Gav.
Do you still have those sunnies? Like...
No. Funny enough, no. I didn't survive them. And I need.
So you've gone from that to, I mean, you've got 97 different products currently just on the Black Library store online with your name on them, and that's like, for me, looking at my hobby and my wargaming community and things like that, a lot of what I see, what I pick up, what I read is your work, and that's pretty amazing, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of us that are in the same boat, and it's really awesome to see that, from 1993 till now, there's been just this massive range of stuff. And I mean, we've read your old fantasy work as well. I think, Brynley, you've recently finished some of the Slaves of Darkness stuff. And
yeah, just finished Blades of Chaos, which was
Blades of Chaos. Yeah,
Yeah, up to book 2 of that series, and it's amazing. Some of your talent for writing an atmosphere and setting a scene is phenomenal. Anyone who hasn't read that series yet, definitely get into it, even if you're not a Chaos player. Definitely have a look at it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
It must be good if it's making Brynley fanboy out. So.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that one in particular. And the cover kind of sums it up. Was about the start of it really, which is just inspired by. Wouldn't it be cool to have like essentially Chaos Marauders fighting Tomb King skeletons? So that was like as an image. So yeah, but yeah, that's going back a bit. I mean, Black Library launched in 1997, I think, and I was so my first short story was published in Inferno issue 2, what was the bi-monthly magazine then, and then I think it must have been 98, I suppose, maybe 99. I can't remember when the first Last Chances novel came out, which is my first novel. So yeah, so this year is basically my we've just passed my 20 years with writing for Black Library as well. So I've worked in the design studio for 14 years, and that's I left coming up to 10 years ago now. I think it'll be 10 years in April, actually, which is weird because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it's been quite a while actually since I was actually working within Games Workshop rather than just working freelance for the Black Library.
When you were,
which is really weird because all the guys I thought were the newbies are now 10-year veterans at Games Workshop, which is a bit embarrassing. But,
oh wow! When you were working with Games Workshop, did you find that your relationship with the hobby changed? Did it go from being a hobby to work, or was it still a hobby for you while you're working there?
No, absolutely. It became. I mean, not as in it became a job and arduous and things, but yeah. I suppose I didn't really notice it until I stopped working at Games Workshop, I suppose. So when I started, sort of playing Rogue Trader and Adeptus Titanicus particularly was the games that really got me into Games Workshop games. But there was lots of kind of, you had to, there wasn't that many models. You had to kind of really work hard to find opponents, all that kind of stuff. And then over that time, and particularly while I was at Games Workshop, it became massive, but also I suppose it became a lot more, the army books and the codexes and things made it a lot easier in some ways. But actually my involvement had become very different because I was on the creative, helping create it. So actually to step back and leave and become just a kind of a consumer was a bit odd. And so I sort of fell out of playing the games over the next year or year and a half or so after leaving, because I was just not that interested in being given the game. I always kind of created the games I wanted when I started out when I was a teenager. And that was my relationship with it, was making stuff. So it's only now really with Age of Sigmar a little bit, but particularly with 8th edition 40k and Shadow War Armageddon and stuff like that, that I've actually really got back into the playing side of stuff. I've been getting my fix, I suppose, out of continuing to work creatively with the background in terms of the novels and things. But now I'm kind of getting my hobby mojo back again with the latest edition of 40k. So yeah, I mean, it was very much, it was, I mean, I've still been into gaming and toy soldiers and stuff, but I've not been a consumer, I suppose, on the outside. I mean, when they relaunched the White Dwarf this time around again, I kind of went full in and got myself a year subscription and stuff because it was just cool. It got me excited again. So that was a part of it as well, I think.
Well, it sounds to me like what you really need, and this is my semi-fake professional opinion, is a trip down to Australia, mate, where you can throw some dice with some proper gamers, because maybe you're just short on good fellas and ladies up there to play with. I mean, we got plenty down here, so you're more than welcome anytime you want.
Yeah, anytime you want to cover the airfare.
Now,
it's a bit harder than Wednesday night, my usual game night, just to pop down. But unfortunately, I live 15 minutes from Warhammer World, so I'm.
So all I'm hearing there, Brynley, is that
facilities department. Yeah.
Gav Thorpe is going to shout Brynley and I tickets over to the UK to throw some dice with him and then pop into Warhammer World. Thanks, man.
I'll pay to get you around the exhibition as well if you like. Yeah.
Your generosity knows no bounds.
What a nice guy. What a nice guy. You heard it here.
Yeah.
Now, recently there's been some movement from Black Library in that they're encouraging future authors to come forward if they fancy themselves a writer or would like to write for Black Library. And I thought it'd be really cool to ask you a few questions to get answers from somebody who's been there, who's done it, and continues to. So
Yeah, that's cool.
I've got some kind of odd questions, and some that I'm sure you've heard before as well. And I'd love to hear what you've got to say. The first one was, have you ever been on a literary pilgrimage?
I've been on a literary pilgrimage. Not as such. No, I've not specifically gone somewhere because of a book or something like that. There's an author called Alan Garner, quite a fairly famous English author, but he wrote a book called The Wheelstone of Brisbane, which is sort of a kid's book, which was basically the first fantasy book I remember, I'm not even reading, but being read to when I was at school. So when I was about 8 or 9, I guess, as part of like a reading group sort of thing. And that must have been, that's one of the reasons I got into fantasy, I suppose. And they're all set around a particular part of sort of like West England and the borders of Wales sort of thing. And very evocative of that place. So I was on holiday there a couple of years back, and it was nice just to be in that environment, I suppose. So we didn't go there on purpose for that, but it was actually, I'd recently reread it, and it was nice to kind of like look at the place names and the landscape and stuff and match it to what I'd just reread in the book. So I suppose that's about the closest of it. I've never felt the need to go to Holy Terror. Which was scary.
But if you ever want to, I'm keen to come. Like road trip, we can road trip to Holy Terror, surely, man.
Yeah, a 60-year pilgrimage, just like in 40K itself, via the moon.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, and
I guess I'm always kind of when you read kind of quite widely. I mean, I suppose the other one again is looking at architecture and cathedrals and stuff like that when you're out and about, and things always feels like it's kind of seeping into my head, and has done for the last 30 years really.
Okay, so I guess in a way you kind of have, just not intentionally. It's always just sort of happened anyway, which is pretty cool. Now you've written a lot of books. Like there's a lot. When you're writing, is it something that energizes you, or does it exhaust you?
Yes.
Yes to both.
A bit of both. It depends on how well it's going. There's times when it's pulling teeth and it's a pain, and you have to drag yourself in front of the computer and make yourself work. And then other times it's going really well and there's lots of dialogue and all that kind of stuff, and it goes really quick. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm full time. I do this pretty much every day, a few hours a day, because it's my job, and it's a great job to have. But yeah, you kind of just develop the discipline to sit down and do it. And starting projects is always tricky, trying to get into it, and there's always a lot of procrastination. I always start about a week later than I intend to, and you'll know when I'm starting a new project because you'll see me so much more on Twitter and Facebook, avoiding booting up the first draft or whatever. But so yeah, and then similarly, there's usually a bit of a crunch at the end. You kind of I try not to rush to get something finished, but because I always, as you're hitting that word count, as you're kind of getting near the deadline, there's a temptation to do kind of like, I'll just dash this off and get it done. It's like, no, try and pace yourself, make sure what you're writing is still as good as what you were writing at the start. So what I'm hearing there is that your next work is going to be a short story titled Procrastination by Gav Thorpe. Yeah. Well, I've got loads of those. There's a whole series. Yeah.
And did you ever consider writing under a pseudonym, like just some random like Max Power?
Yeah, Ingvar Pethor. No, I can't say I have really. It's I suppose just from purely kind of because I started with Games Workshop, and then kind of while I was at Games Workshop was writing for Black Library, so it just made sense to be Gav Thorpe both. And then given that I was established for Black Library when I started doing some of my original fiction and things like that, again, it makes sense to take the name with me. In case some people wanted to read some other stuff, not many, but so yeah, it would be great to have like a outrageous pseudonym maybe, self-published somewhere, just something completely unrelated to what
It's
I
never
normally
too
do,
late.
paranormal romance, or extraterrestrial romance. That's what we do.
Now, you're obviously friends with quite a lot of other authors and Black Library authors and things like that. Do you find that being friends with other authors helps improve your writing as well?
I think so. I mean, the main thing you get from being friends with other authors and seeing them at conventions and stuff like that is it's an ever-shifting support group, basically. It's like everyone, as much as you think, whatever you're going through, the highs and lows of being a writer and stuff, as soon as you start talking to other authors, no matter how new or well-established they are, everyone goes through the same stuff. And it's nice just to chat about that experience. So it's great to get out and talk to the fans at things like the Black Library weekend and stuff, but actually a good chunk of it as well is just cool catching up with the other writers, or if you're going to other genre events and things, and finding out that the experience isn't that dissimilar, and that is quite energizing, really, talking to fans and talking to other authors. And it depends what I've been doing as to what I'll go to a war game show, for instance, and I'll either be running some games or just playing, and when I get back I want to write rules and I want to work on games. Or if I've been to the Black Library weekend, then I'm very energized for the Black Library stuff, and if I've been to a more general sort of fantasy con or something like that, then I want to really get on with my own stuff, my original fiction and things. So, so it kind of, which is great, but it's also a bit of a pain depending on what I'm actually supposed to be working on at the time. If suddenly, I've got a deadline looming for a Black Library novel and all I want to do is write a war game. But yeah, I think it's cool talking to other writers as well, because lots of people got very different approaches to writing, so sometimes it makes you reevaluate how you go about the process or getting ideas or whatever.
So in my head, because obviously we surround ourselves with the people that we like, so when you explain that to me, I picture myself in a room in a circle where I stand up and say, "Hi, my name's Gav Thorpe. It's been 26 weeks since my last book, and I've already started to get the scratch." And then Brynley spends 10 minutes telling me how much of a terrible person I am. So,
daily conversation.
Yes.
As far as stories go, and I'd like to not limit this to Black Library, because really there's so many great books out there. What's your most favorite unappreciated novel?
Well, that I've read, not that I've written.
Or both. Feel free to shamelessly self-promote here as well. We don't mind.
Yeah, we're all about shameless self-promotion here.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know. I'm really bad at favourites because I can never remember stuff. But there's a great novel. It's not very long, but actually it's quite moving, called Dogfellow's Ghost. I can't remember the name of the author now, unfortunately. But essentially, it's told from the viewpoint of one of the hybrids created by Dr. Moreau on the island of Dr. Moreau, and it's quite and Dogfellow, his character is it's part of dog, so it's very loyal and very and you feel for this character. It's quite affecting, really. So that's a nice story. Sort of like fantastical elements, I suppose. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not that widely read most of the time in terms of obscure stuff, really, because I haven't had the time lately. There's a few new authors. The thing is, as well, I tend to my reading over the last few years has kind of either been graphic novels or concentrated on authors that I'm actually going to meet or have met, and I sound interested. Their book sounds quite interesting, and either they give me a copy or I've picked up a copy and stuff like that. So. There's sort of like a little a growing band of authors, and again, I mean, I've got an original fantasy trilogy published by Angry Robot Books, which was set up by Mark Gascoigne, who used to run Black Library, called The Crown of the Blood, or there's an omnibus called The Empire of the Blood, which is it's a kind of swords and sandals, a kind of more Bronze Age type world rather than Warhammer medieval fantasy type, which I'm quite pleased with, but obviously hasn't had like the exposure that a Black Library novel has had.
Yeah.
But actually, through Angry Robot, I've got to meet quite a few other authors. So, and now again, they've got a nice diverse portfolio, and a few actually. The other thing, actually going back, full circle, is the number of authors I bump into who are or were GW fans.
Yeah.
So, and some of them, are still playing. I've just got back into it recently. Guys like Den Patrick, who's a fantasy and science fiction author, and a few others. And actually, Black Library are quite, along with having their submissions window, I think they're recruiting quite hard to get some other authors into their stable and stuff. So it's a good time to want to write for Black Library. So I've been any authors I meet who are interested, I kind of hit up and share the details of the submissions edit and say, well, if you want to, now's the best time to do it. Get in touch, kind of thing. So
we will definitely keep that in mind, because I've seen a few fan fictions and stuff like that from people down here in Australia that are really good reads. And look, you're talking to somebody who would have finished reading The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan long time ago. If Gav, you just stopped bringing out bloody books. I've got to stop reading it and put it down so I can read your books, because your books are the priority over it. And but there's a lot of good writers out there that I really encourage to get out there as well.
So the main thing I would say, there's some lots of good authors that you'll see being quite widely publicised. But actually, if you want something a bit different, is to look for some of the smaller independent presses as well. Fox Spirit Books, and there's actually another Australian. There's Grimdark magazine, quite good for showcasing new. If you like 40k and Warhammer and that sort of style of writing, then check out. It's an e-magazine called Grimdark. Which might give you they're short stories, but you might then want to investigate those authors a bit more, and so you can see a bit more variety in the storytelling and the types of authors as well. So don't just look at like the Amazon bestseller list, but kind of dig in, go onto Facebook groups to try and dig through who some of maybe the up and coming authors are, or people that aren't necessarily going to be splattered all over your local bookshop with big posters and stuff, but actually might be doing some really good work.
Okay, and on that, because a lot of things are online these days, and if there's one thing we all know, that when it comes to the internet, there can be a lot of dickheads out there. So obviously, like considering like us, considering how many books you've actually got out there, there's been thousands of reviews on those books as well. How with like the positive and the negative reviews?
I think you have to. Well, you kind of treat both the same in a way that if there's something, if it's just like a 1-star review, no comments and stuff, then there's not a lot you can do about it. Or 1-star Amazon late delivering it, it's like okay. And then simply 5 stars, it was awesome. It's nice to have, but it doesn't really give you anything. It's not feedback. And I think that's what you need to do. Is you need to look at reviews that provide feedback or some kind of at least. Reasoning behind them, whether positive or negative. So if there's really positive views and people say what they, there's a review, you look at it and you think, okay, those are the things they like, that's what I need to concentrate on. And if there's negative reviews with, again, reasoning with an actual critique, then look into it and see if they've got a point, if it's just a matter of taste, if it's, well, they've not, what I wanted to write isn't obviously what quite came out in the text or things like that. And sometimes you just think, people missed the point, or obviously I didn't quite write something that conveyed what I wanted to.
So how do you resist the urge to just tell them to go and shove their review up there? Yes, that booty.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's one. It's just self-discipline of 20 years, 30 years. But also, before. I suppose my skin was thickened, as it were, on games development for Games Workshop. So, although I suspect I've probably got a bit more personal investment in the novels and things like that, actually, when somebody just tells me the 3rd edition Eldar Codex sucks, you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. All those other people went out and bought it and enjoyed it, and that's the and again, I suppose there's that slight. People making reviews or making comments don't necessarily make the distinction, but I can make the distinction between myself and my work. And although they are linked, I can some stuff you just go, well, that's a valid point. Actually, either you didn't like it, or well, yeah, if I had my time again, I might rewrite it and have done it differently, or done it, had more time to spend on it, or whatever. But the reality is, I'm very much of the view publish and be damned. It's like once something's out there, you can't change it again. It's like it's there. People will like it or not like it, or somewhere in between. And what I can do is hopefully learn and improve for the next thing I do.
So I guess in a way, hindsight helps with all future books as well.
Yeah, I think so. And also just talking about procrastination and stuff. But yeah, the more you write, the more you understand your own process and how to get the best out of yourself. So although I do faff around for a week and don't do stuff. Actually,
so you faff around for a while.
Ideas. Sorry.
So part of your process though is that faffing around, because that has become part of the process, and therefore it's required.
Yeah, I think so. And also, the fundamental difference is there's writing, which is like coming up with stories, which a lot of it actually is faffing around and thinking about stuff, and then there's typing, which is trying to find the right words to put it onto a page, and they're not the same process. So actually, I've kind of adapted my schedule now, knowing that I'm going to spend a week sort of like working on the idea, even though I've kind of put out and had an approved synopsis, fleshing out the ideas, coming up with more scenes or whatever, so that I don't sit down day one and just go, right, now start typing. It's like, well, actually, I've got a bit more time to let these ideas mature. And it's an ongoing process. Writing a novel is about 10-12 weeks work, an 80,000 word novel. So stuff develops as you're going along, and you'll go back and want to change things and everything. But
I just want you to know it is a safe space here. So if you want to just come out and admit that you're actually just taking a week to play your favorite Xbox game, that's fine. It won't go past the public.
I wish. I don't even have an Xbox One. I've still got an Xbox 360 because
yes, I'm not the only one, Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, you see, Gav, you and Brynley are going to get along just fine.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because as a friend put it out, when they came out, it's like, well, because I don't really get much, time to watch. I've been focusing very much, particularly over the last year or so, on doing some hobby stuff, like say painting, playing games and things. So actually, I don't watch that much television, and I don't have Netflix and all that kind of stuff, because I don't get the value out of the TV and the gaming I've got already. Literally, I don't have enough hours in the day, and I've got a 4-year-old boy who, obviously takes up weekend time and all the rest of it, which is great. I love it, but also it just means leisure time. Like, yeah, okay, what little I've got, I've decided to focus on trying to do one or two things rather than trying to do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, spending £400 on an Xbox One to download Netflix that I'll never watch just seemed a bit counterproductive.
So if we were to Facebook you out, hey, Gav, do you want to have a quick game? Or hey, we're going to be there next week. Let's binge watch this real terrible show on Netflix. You can actually come back to us and say, mate, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm faffing around for a week, and then I've got to spend some time with my kid.
Yes,
that's pretty good. I think you've done all right for yourself. That's
I did want to get in some Deathwing playing with and a couple of other guys. You can see the videos of that on YouTube. And we might try and kick that off again. We've had a couple of sessions of just playing the Deathwing game, which is just ridiculously crap at it, but
it's good stuff. As a writer of numerous characters, though, if you had to pick one of your characters as your avatar, your mascot, who would it be?
Because I wouldn't want to, really, because all of my characters are either kind of tragic or dicks or I don't really do many likable characters, I suppose.
Hey mate, don't hate the character, hate the writer.
Yeah, it's not the character's fault. Although the one I'd still pick would be Cage, actually, from The Last Chances, simply because it was written first person and is kind of possibly the character, not necessarily my best books, because they were some of my earliest ones, but certainly still some of the most fun to write, I think, because of the nature of the stories I got to tell with him and things. So, because I wouldn't want to be a space marine or an elf or anything like that, I suppose. Maybe one of the dwarf characters I've written, one of the dwarfs in Mo.er or something, because I love me some dwarfs.
Fair enough.
But yeah, probably Cage again. Just the guy trying to survive who's a bit wonky in the head.
So someone we can all kind of relate to.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, my last question for you before Brynley throws a couple at you is, with all your books, do you hide in them any secrets that only a few people might notice and find out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's little jokes, and actually, to be honest, I wouldn't even say a few people. I'd say me. But I'm the only one who would understand some of the jokes. So not quite so much now, but certainly when I was doing the Last Chancellor stuff as well, quite a few of the characters would be based off people who wanted to appear in one of my novels. But the caveat was always you'd have to die horribly. So characters like Brownie Dunmore and Commissar Mark and things like that are based on people that I knew. Brownie Dunmore, sorry, is actually an Aussie guy who used to work at GW Oz many years ago, and things like that. So, and then these days, yeah, there might be slipping little references to, you know, either pop culture stuff or kids' TV lately. Last week, there might be some kind of reference to something from like In the Night Garden or some
Peppa
kind of
Pig.
weird kid stuff. Yeah. That's what I know about.
So are you telling us that one day Eldar may invade the home of Tinky Winky? And
Yeah.
okay,
That's
all right.
yeah. Well,
Right.
yeah, I've not quite got to, you know, naming the ship the Ninky Nonk or anything like that, but there are elements of it.
Rogue Trader Vessel, the Teletubby.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just the massacre of Bob the Builder land. You know, Postman Pat has really gone postal, and I like it. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what?
Barney
If we
from
just
Sesame
faff
Street.
around for about a week, Gav, we might actually have something here.
Well, that's what you do, is you faff around watching children's TV. There's some great stuff.
Well, Andrew Allen in the chat has said Gav Thorpe, professional part-time faffer. So
Yeah.
so there you go. And then there's
you're
also
full-time
people
faffer.
praising your taste in video games, the 360. So.
Good choice.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, it sits there. Actually, our DVD player breaks. I'm so glad I've still got it because we've been using it basically as a really bad DVD player lately. The Glorious Life of the International New York Times best-selling author.
I like it.
I've been
I
using
like
your
it.
Xbox 360 as a DVD player. Yeah.
Hey,
That's what I
man,
do.
it works for my kids. It works for my kids too.
Yeah.
I love it. It's the only way to get them out of the media room. All right, Brynley, take it away, brother.
All right, guys. So, me and Gav are going to be talking about a little bit about 40K lore and some of the exciting things that happen. So, as proud Xbox 360 owners and fathers, I'm going to have to ask the first ambiguous question: are Dark Angels absolute traitors to the Imperium?
You could certainly understand that argument. I think the longer answer is they may well have been when they made the decision to hide what had happened. The guys these days, 10,000 years later, are just kind of playing the hand they got dealt. And it's a problem that's just got worse and worse. You know, Azrael has this complete balancing act of, you know, and I kind of look at this in the Legacy of Caliban series, the idea that it's become such a thing now, the Dark Angels being seen as traitors or being their secret being uncovered is itself a threat to the Imperium. So therefore they have to maintain that secrecy now, even for the good of the Imperium. The Imperium can't stand that kind of schism or that kind of jolt to, especially now post Rift and all of that kind of stuff. It needs all hands on deck. So although at one time it was self-serving, it's now become I think it's become so enmeshed with the necessity for them to continue to appear loyal and to kind of that they've kind of created this terrible web of intrigue and lies and things. And you know, it's like telling a lie. You know, the longer it goes on, the harder it is, but also the worse it gets. If they'd come clean 10,000 years ago, they wouldn't be the Dark Angels, and we wouldn't have had any of this story. But also, they wouldn't have had the problems. But you can't. They literally can't come clean now and say, "Oh, by the way, everything you believe about us for the last 10,000 years has been wrong," and you know, the thousands of us have been secretly waging a war that you don't know about. And oh, by the way, now the Imperium's broken apart again. Whoops.
Not again.
So yes, it's a bit. I suppose in the parlance of the time, it's a bit more nuanced than that.
So they are, but they aren't. So we'll see.
Yeah, some people would definitely see them as traitors, and they wouldn't be wrong, but they wouldn't be 100% right.
I'm sure we've just ignited some amazing sort of internet firestorm just by talking about it.
I hope so. I continue to try to do that. That's the entirety of why I write Dark Angels stuff, is just to make Dark Angels players argue amongst themselves.
I
always wondered, and I appreciate the entertainment.
Yes, well, it was like when you go to ask a politician, will there be tax cuts if we vote for you? And they say, well, there won't be tax cuts, but there might be tax cuts.
Yeah,
I like it. It was a smart answer.
It's very clever. So I guess the second part of that question is, has the line actually just been working out for the last 10,000 years to show up Gilliman?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, yes. Called it. I won that sports bet. I'm so happy. All right, so the first books I started reading of yours were the Elder ones, so Path of the Warrior, Path of the Seer, and Path of the Ranger, and I absolutely love what you've done with just the backstory of the Elder themselves and being able to successfully portray a way of life through it. I found it was so immersive to be able to just read about it and experience basically a world that you created, because obviously you've had a lot of dealings with the Elder and developing like not only codexes but backstories for a lot of characters. And I can't sing enough praise for that series. But look, you've got another book on the way, another Elder book, and I'm so excited for it because it's a series, and hopefully you don't kill too many characters off.
No, yeah, I mean, I've been basically an Eldar fan of the Eldari for a long time. Since in the UK it was White Dwarf 127, which was basically the big relaunch of the Eldar with Jez Goodwin sketches, and they introduced the Exarchs and Aspect Warriors and Avatars and Fighters and stuff. So that was just, I was sold from that moment on. So that's 30 years ago now or something like that. Well, not quite that long, but coming up to 30 years. And so when I write Eldar, I just basically write stuff that I think is cool and I would like to see as an Eldar fan, which I think is what helps a lot. So yeah, I mean, the latest series is the Rise of the Inari, and all part of the new Dark Imperium background. So the first one was Ghost Warrior, which is kind of introduced. So as well as Ivrain and the Vizark and friends, we've got the other main character is Iana Arianel from Iandan. And so you get to do loads of kind of wraith stuff and things like that. And the premise of that is an ancient craft world that disappeared not long after the Fall has reappeared. And it's one of its webway gates in particular. It's supposed to lead to a place called the Well of the Dead, I believe it's called, it's supposedly the burial place of Eldanesh. So the Inari and Ivrain are very interested in finding that, and then there's connections to Iandan and Iana's family and stuff. So yeah, and then I've just delivered the second one called Wild Rider, which obviously then kind of takes the Inari to Sime Handcraft world and lots of jet bike actions and stuff, and they end up taking on Necrons. So that's been quite fun as well, delving back into 60 million years pre-history of the Eldari and the Necrons and things like that. So yeah, and that's why I like doing it. They've got that depth of history. They go, oh yeah, the Horus Heresy. Oh, that was only 10,000 years ago. Check out what was happening 60 million years ago.
Because the story of the Necrons themselves, it's a really fascinating tale. How are you able to go more into it in this book, in this series?
There's a bit. I mean, there's a couple of kind of like antagonist viewpoints, I suppose. So I get to kind of touch upon some of the stuff, and it's one of those. It's like, well, given an infinite amount of time, actually, it made me think, I'd love to do a bit more Necron stuff, really, and potentially a Necron point of view novel even. But that's not going to be appearing on my schedule anytime soon. I've got other stuff lined up nicely at the moment. But yeah, it was nice to go. I've not really done anything with Necrons for a long, long time. So it was nice to go back to. I mean, the background's evolved and changed a lot since the first iterations that I helped work on, but there's still elements there, and I think kind of like just in terms of delving into a bit of the backstory for this novel for Wild Rider was nice, and I could see possibilities for lots of good storytelling in the future if somebody wanted to do it. Yeah.
So you mentioned you've got a backlog of work. For those fantasy and Age of Sigmar lovers out there, anything coming?
There is. It's not announced yet, but I am I'm literally at this time doing the reading and researching on what will be the first book in the new Age of Sigmar trilogy, which will be looking at the origins and conquests of a particular character that I can't name yet, but as a dog for a friend.
I will be all over that like a fat kid on a cupcake. I cannot wait.
That's one of my that's pretty much my next big project, and a return to Age of Sigmar in big style, really. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've just got a bit of catching up to do in terms of the reading up around the character and story and stuff that, and making sure I've not missed anything that's moved on since I last read some Age of Sigmar. So, but yeah, and then after that we'll see. Actually, hopefully that will go well.
That's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to 100%. I'm right into my Age of Sigmar at the moment, if you haven't already noticed. So that is something awesome to look forward to. Thank you for that little tidbit.
You're welcome.
It's going to be pretty exciting because you did.
Oh, now I'm going to fanboy out. I got to go.
Because you did War Beast, which actually provided a really interesting point of view to the Stormcast as they were fighting in the Realm Gate Wars, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky. I was given quite a bit of freedom with War Beast. There was quite a lot of stuff that was quite brief to the main narrative and stuff, but they essentially, Black Library just said, well, they've got to be fighting pest. Pick a couple of the the chambers that have not been used, or they're fighting pestilence, and it's got to be part for a Realm Gate, and that was about it, really. So I was able to delve into that and kind of bring quite a bit to that myself. Whereas some of the other stories were very tied to the ongoing narrative as it was at the time. I think the great thing about Age of Sigmar now is it's much more established as a setting, and actually the presentation. Although there is things like malign portent, and there's obviously story ongoing from Black Library's point of view. The reins have been let off a little bit, I think, and authors are now free to just go and explore and write cool stories that happen to be in that setting, not necessarily tied directly to what's coming out of the central GW studio and things, which is why we're seeing stuff like Josh Reynolds doing some great stuff with Plague Garden and Eight Lamentations, and David Garner's doing stuff. So yeah, I think it's a great time to jump on with the Age of Sigmar fiction. I think it's going to really go to a different place over the next couple of years, and hopefully I'll be part of that.
Were you apprehensive as well when they said, "All right, we're scrapping Warhammer Fantasy Battles and we're taking over with Age of Sigmar"? Were you like, "Oh, guys, hold on," or were you briefed beforehand so you had a pretty good idea of what was going to go down?
It was more of a sort of like slow drawing back of the curtain, I suppose. We knew, so because we did the novel tie-ins, the three of us did the novel tie-ins for the End Times books. So I did the Curse of Cain, which was kind of nice to, in a way, to wrap up the story that I started. I started it. Obviously, Bill King wrote all of the original background, but to kind of tie up the end and write the novel that finished Malekith's story in a way. Although it was very difficult to write because again there was so much material. It was there was a background book that was released which was probably had more words in it than I had to write the novel, and I had to try and add more characterization and more more detail and stuff. So I had to pick a very narrow thread of Malekith's story to follow. But it turned out all right in the end, I think. So yeah, we knew the End Times was coming, and all the rumours were that there was going to be quite the End Times end. It's not like this wasn't Storm of Chaos on the brink sort of stuff. This was like, no, it all gets broken. But we didn't necessarily know the details of Age of Sigmar. And I was getting bits and pieces of it from my nefarious contacts within GW, but it wasn't until I was commissioned for War Beast that I got them. Yeah. Who've kind of dried off of late, unfortunately. But yeah, I know. I get bits and pieces, but I don't have a hotline, as some people might think I do. And yeah, so and then when I was commissioned to do War Beast, I was brought in and given the whole presentation, and this is what it is, and these are Stormcast, and here's a whole bunch of backgrounders, and then sent a bunch of PDFs to read and prepare for it. So yeah, and it was. I mean, my biggest regret, I suppose, is that I didn't get to write more dwarf stories before the old world ended. It's because had I known that was going to happen, then I might have pushed a bit harder to get at least one more out. But it's one of those things that, having been on the inside of GW and knowing the way decisions make, I wouldn't necessarily have made the decision the same way, but I understand the issues that were there and why they made the decisions they did. And the rollout could have been a lot better, and all sorts of stuff could have been better managed. But I think, like I say, 2-3 years down the line, and when you see the stuff that's kind of coming out, the thing that really nailed it for me actually was I did a short story called Wrathspring, which was about Alariel and kind of like Realm of Life and stuff like that, and the rise of the return of the Sylvaneth and things. And they sent me like a presentation and some basically reference material for the miniatures that were being worked on, including Alariel and new kind of like the new models for the range. And I saw them, I just went, these are stunning. These are going to be painters' models as well as kind of game piece. But it's like, we're just going to, my first thought was like, I wonder how many Alariels we're going to see at Golden Demon this year, basically. And then, and then they brought out the Caradron Overlords, and there's other stuff coming, and just like, this is what people get to see. People obviously, there's been a lot of focus on the Stormcast because this is where people really start to see the breadth and the opportunities of Age of Sigmar to break away and just create stuff that people aren't expecting at all. And I think that's what's really exciting about it. Now that kind of like the bases have been loaded a bit with the Chaos and the Stormcast stuff, but now actually branching out and doing other factions, and also the world just being fleshed out more, I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, their personalities are starting to show now. Now that they've gone past the whole here's the new poster boys buzz, then now they're going, all right, well, now our authors are able to show you that, like Alariel, for example. When I first pictured her when she was first mentioned and stuff in the fluff, I thought, oh, she's going to be this peace-loving tree hugger hippie. But it turns out she can be quite cranky and quite killy. So it's good. It's good to see a development of all these characters that, like you said, aren't the Stormcast. We all understand why the focus was there, but now, and as I'm sure with your fantasy books in the future, there's it's exciting to know that now we're starting to get to know all the other players in the game, and there's a lot of them, as there is in all the Warhammer universes, I guess. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it just takes time, I suppose, for stuff to put in. And people, there's two things, like, a lot of like I mentioned in the characters and named characters, is that only time gives them real world gravitas that matches that gravitas within the background. Marnie's Calgar or Commander Dante or Gazgul Thraka have been around for many, many years, so therefore they have this weight attached to them, whereas likes of Vander's Hammerhand or whoever don't have that yet. So, but once they've been around a while, not just within the background but within people's games, once the setting's bedded down and the characters are more developed, then I think then it's kind of it'll be up there on par with where Warhammer was. So, but yeah, I mean, the old world, I love the old world. I worked with the old world for many, many years and tried my best to make it distinctive from its roots and all the rest of it and stuff. But I can understand why they made the clean break and why they wanted something that was far more identifiable and far more distinctive, I suppose, as much as I enjoyed doing Warhammer. It was like we tried to do as much cool stuff as we could.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're talking it down a little bit, though, as well, because you didn't, for me, like you didn't just work on it, like you're one of the creators of those universes, and not just one, but multiple, 30K, 40K, Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, like there's 4 there. I think working on it is just you being a nice guy. Like you've gone, you you helped start it all. So I'm bloody thank you. They're awesome.
That's all right.
I love all of them.
So you mentioned,
Especially,
you mentioned you had a lot of freedom working on War Beast and being able to help develop the Age of Sigmar, basically the culture and the atmosphere for it at the moment. Working on larger projects like the Beast Arises, where you did the Emperor Expects, and you did one other one. My apologies, I had it right here.
Beast Must Die. That's right,
Beast Must Die. How did you go with? You were working alongside a lot of other authors, and it's a huge story. Like Terra's invaded. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it's a big drama that plays out in the 40k universe. How did you go with that? Was there a script that you guys had to follow, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was what happened was we had when it was. I think it was Dan who kind of posited the idea of chatting to the kind of the higher ups of Black Library, and obviously his background in comics and things. He brought some of that and thought, a shared author series. And the idea was originally it'd run for a year. You'd have a regular release, so you'd know it's coming out every month. I think there were going to be 13 originally, it might have been 12 in the end. But it was going to, at the time, it was going to run from a games day to a games day, basically, in the UK, as it was then. But yeah, that kind of like doing a novel version of a comic series in some ways. And then so we sat down, and well, there were two meetings really. The real first meeting was just kind of chewing the fat about what the scope of it could be, and we pitched a few ideas. And then the management of GW came back and said, well, that's a bit too wacky. Could you pick something that's actually in the 40k timeline but not really mentioned and flesh that out? So we had the Beast Arises was in the timeline, and then followed by the beheading. And we went, okay, we'll focus on that. So we had a meeting about what would that be. So we've got this resurgence of orcs, and that whole thing was like orcs like you've never seen them before or since. That was as much as it reshaped people's view of the Imperium, is actually to reshape people's view of what orcs could or could not be, and orcs as a really serious galactic threat. And so, and from that, we kind of came up with these different beats, the OMFG moments that each book would have, either as part of the developing story or as a kind of a cliffhanger kind of ending. And then it was up to the editors to kind of dole that out amongst the authors. And it had a bit of a stop-start. We did the first 3 books, so Dan. I think Rob Sanders did book 2, didn't he? I think, and myself did the first 3 books, and then the series went off the boil a little bit, I think, in terms of the management. So it was a little while before it was resurrected, and other authors were brought on who weren't necessarily part of the original meeting. So a lot of it fell on the editorial team to kind of get that story continuing, and their notes and stuff. So, but yeah, from that it was a case of a story in 12 parts. A bit different from the approach for the Horus Heresy, but it seemed to be really popular in the format in terms of the regular release, people being able to keep up the story, and it being an event that people didn't know really much about. Seemed to go down really well. It was always earmarked as this is Black Library, a Black Library exclusive in some ways. Originally the Horus Heresy had been a Black Library thing, and then Forge World have obviously got involved and done all their cool stuff. So this was this is where you find out about stuff. This isn't from Codex. This isn't from somewhere else. It's like you read these novels and you find out about this big chunk of the background. And I think that although a little bit busy doing stuff with the new Dark Imperium and things, so that's kind of the focus for 40k for a little while. I think the idea of doing these event series is still very much there, and come back and do either do another one in the future, I think is the idea, and hopefully it'll prove as popular as the Beast Arises.
Oh, the Beast Arises, it's an amazing series. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I read it, and then I had a period where I had to travel a really long way for work regularly, and I listened to the entire series in like 3 months. It was amazing. Absolutely loved it. So we've got a few questions from our fans, or not our fans. I suppose the people who tolerate us on social media would be a correct term. So the first one's from Ashley Hudson. He's like, when you write a book like the Path of Elder series, does playing or watching games help you write about that particular faction?
Yes and no, I suppose. I think that, as I say, I wasn't particularly playing very much myself at the time, but I think you have to be aware of the game, and you have to be, although we're not beholden strictly to what's in the rules and things like that, you have to understand the relationships between things, and kind of as much as you can massage stuff within a narrative, so that if you need to kill a Space Marine, then the guy you've got to do it can kill a Space Marine. But actually understanding that a squad of Terminators, or this is how Dire Avengers kind of function, is very important. Yeah, I think if you end up with a complete disconnect with what happens on the tabletop and what happens in the fiction, then people are put off. So part of that suspension of disbelief, I suppose, for gamers is, some of the stuff might be quite outrageous or not necessarily strictly codex in terms of the pure kind of army list and things, but actually you have to feel that they are two renditions of the same reality. That actually you might be able to take what happens in the book and play it out on a tabletop, or at least part of it if it's an immense battle and things like that. So, for instance, talking about Age of Sigmar stuff, I'm going to try and I'm going to get some games in. So I have played it once already, but I need to kind of get into it, just not because it's going to define how the battles are portrayed and stuff, but just to get the sense of what particular armies function like and how the units interact in terms of what their roles are and things like that.
Absolutely. Wow. So next one's from Wayne. It's another Dark Angels question.
Sorry, 1 second. Can you just pronounce Wayne's last name for me, mate?
Mullen. Wow, that is Mullinyux. I'm so sorry if I've mispronounced this.
Yeah, you totally have. I just wanted to embarrass you on cast. That's all cool.
Well, this is unsurprising. All right, so it's a Dark Angels question. All right, if the Dark Angels traitors, is it Luther or the Lion that's the traitor?
Luther.
Twice. There we go. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It doesn't mean, and it doesn't have to be an either or.
I love it. Right. Yep. So next one's from William. Can you force the Psychic Hulk Deathwing guys to incorporate the best death? Wait, hold on. I'm so sorry. I should have read this beforehand.
This is the kind of professionalism you come to expect from us, Pat. Welcome to AusHammer.
I'm just going to go to the one from James because I'm sorry, man. That made no sense. You've created so many characters for the 40K universe. Who's your favorite creation? You kind of already answered that before. So other than your Penal Legion characters, who would be next?
I would say, not necessarily my creation, but I've actually had a lot of fun writing with the Inari, with the Vrain. So not necessarily. I mean, she's really interesting as well, actually. So I'm having a lot of fun exploring her. But that little coterie of characters, so Vrain and the Vizark, particularly, and their relationships, I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, nice. So next one is from Ben Mix 70. What exactly is Has Hutch? We were talking about this before, Ryan.
Yeah. So that was Hashut is the father of darkness. He's a minor chaos god, I believe. But Gav, am I right or am I wrong there?
Yeah, no, that's right. Basically, Hashut was the god of the chaos dwarfs. So this
nice.
Is he some sort of bull with a cigar or something? I can't. It's been a while.
Yeah. They had there's a whole kind of Babylonian Assyrian thing going on there was with the chaos dwarfs and things. So Hashut was was essentially the power that they turned to and/or created once they split with the rest of the dwarfs and found themselves out in the wilderness. But it's never quite. One of the things about Hashut, it was never really explained what sort of, apart from chaos dwarfiness, exactly what it was that he represented, other than just this power that they kind of sacrificed to. So kind of like this infernal industry, I suppose, is one of the things. Slavery and infernal industry and kind of nastiness like that.
Yeah, well, he was at the pinnacle of the city of fire and desolation. So I do recall it in older books. So
yeah,
that's a good question. Who was that?
Yeah, that was from Ben Mix 70. So thanks, man. That's actually a really good question.
It really was.
Yeah, so second last question we've got from Sean Sexton. When can we get a book about Sly Marbo?
Not from me for a while, I'm afraid. My 2018's already fallen out, and 2019's looking busy already. So, but anyways, you know, Sly Marbo writes his own books. We wouldn't let anyone else do it.
Yeah, that's it. He's basically the Chuck Norris of the 40k universe.
Yeah.
And the last question is Simon Whatevers, and he wants to know, where's me bloody squats? So
yeah, down the back of the sofa.
Oh, they're a cheeky
well, funnily
bunch.
enough, yeah, I don't know. Keep your eye out. You might see some, not from me necessarily, but there might be more references and things come in. You never know. Not, I don't think they're bringing back an army or anything like that. But
all right.
The real answer is they're really expensive on eBay, and that's where you want.
Oh yeah, that's so, man. They're insanely expensive. I think I saw 20 of them going for somewhere close to $360. Is mental.
Yeah.
Like not
damn.
Yeah, they're definitely up there. Look, that's all the questions from the people who tolerate us, and yeah, that's all I've got.
Definitely is. Now, we're coming towards the end of the night, and obviously we were speaking before we went live, Gav, about a whole bunch of the community here that had written into us and told us about their magical moment, their special moment, their epic moment in hobby, and we had selected two people to receive a prize, one box of Age of Sigmar goodies, and one would receive a box of 40k goodies. Now, would you do us the honor of announcing the two winners?
Yeah. I would like to. I'm having a slight technological issue. Hang on.
You switched to your iPad. That's right.
Oh, that's right.
But we were talking about it. It's in the chat on the side, actually.
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Hang on. Nope. Hang on. Sorry. Well,
you're right.
Right then. No, I can't. Sorry, I'm having an issue. Could you stick down a message on the chat for us, because I'm not sure what I'm doing now.
I certainly can. Have you still got Facebook open?
Yeah, just through the call chat. I don't know. I sent a message thing to the. I don't know. There's two. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
I can definitely do
so while
that.
the technical issues are being sorted out, the prizes are being kindly provided by Irresistible Force down in Tanamura. So thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
And that's here in Brisbane, because not everybody that watches us is in Brisbane. Some are in Canada, Brynley. There you go.
We like Canada.
Right.
I wouldn't mind going there, actually.
Yeah, we should do that.
Here we go. Okay. So I'll read from the script here.
That's actually just that's actually, I've just copied and pasted their short story of their magic moment.
Right, okay. Right, so great. I'll just do the bit then. So congratulations to Tim Barkley, who had won a set of Age of Sigmar Khorne miniatures for his cool Age of Sigmar story here. And then we also have well done to James Adam, who's picked up some 40k Primaris Marines, who's a newbie by looks of it, but actually has already got himself a cool story. So yeah, congratulations to James and Tim, and those boxes. Somebody will be sending you some cool boxes of stuff soon. We
certainly will be. So if you're a winner, make sure that you get in contact with us. You can find us on Facebook. Send us a message so we know that you've got this, and give us an address. Gav, you've won a set of Brynley's old paintbrushes. Congratulations. You're welcome.
I'll even sign them, mate.
We'd have to pay him to take them, mate. What are you on about? All right, so that's coming to the end now. It's not often that we get to speak to our favourite authors, so I wanted to take 10 seconds selfishly to say, Gav, thank you for the 13th Legion. Thank you for Malekith, and thank you for Doom of the Elves as well.
Thank you.
That's all I've got to say. Loved them, and loved them. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Oh, and Grudge Bearer, of course.
Yep.
One of my favourites.
Yeah, absolutely bloody amazing book. So thank you very much for that.
Cheers.
And also thank you for the Slaves to Darkness series, because Brynley's actually started a Slaves to Darkness army now. So
wow.
yeah, so his wife has you to thank for all the money that's probably missing.
I know. Well, yeah, I'll get that a few times. So thanks for that, and then show me a picture of their new Dark Angels Battle Force or whatever. Yeah.
No, but look, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure, and just know that you're always welcome in Australia. The hashtag, I do believe, is already trending. Where is it? Here we go. We've got hashtag bring Gav down here to Oz. So we will see if we can absolutely con you into that at some stage. But look, mate, it has been an absolute pleasure. But before we go, is there anything you'd like to say to all of your readers and fans down here in the land of Oz?
Thank you very much. It's been a long time since I've been to Australia, but I've always had a great time when I've been down there. Thank you for reading. And if you want to keep up with Gav-related stuff, you can actually sign up for a newsletter on my website, www.gavthorpe.co.uk.
It's in the description below as well.
Yeah, I'll chat to you on AusHammer again sometime soon, hopefully. Take care.
Absolutely. Love to have you.
All right, Gav, I will take us out. Stay on, mate, and we'll say goodbye off air as well. To all of our viewers tonight, thank you for joining us on a Gav Thorpe special, and thank you to Brynley for hosting tonight. You're an absolute bloody legend. When are you going to get a new beanie? That one looks like it stinks.
I've got a new beanie.
That is sad. On that bombshell,